Herman.
Oh, hey, guess what?
What?
These nuts.
Got him.
Oh,
No, let's go ahead and start the show. You ready?
I quit.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. That's the podcast that improves itself, improves ourselves, and improves the self in general. My name is Ty. I'm going to be your host, and today I'm joined by my rapacious co-host, Distance. Tonight, I like that better than the wave. I like the double thumbs up. I'm digging that. Tonight we are talking about the idea of so I'm saying the idea of materialism, but I'm not sure if that's 100% correct because we're not talking about the philosophical idea of materialism. We're talking about the tendency for humans to be materialistic, which when I'm Googling the term materialism, I'm not finding that. Am I using the word improperly? Is materialism not actually this subject?
There's two definitions.
Okay.
The philosophical one's the one you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just look it up on the interwebs, the one that we're concerned with is a tendency to consider material possessions and physical comfort as more important than spiritual values. That's actually the dictionary definition. I didn't necessarily want to include that it's more important than. Oh, hold on just a second here.
God.
Sorry. That didn't even sound like a belch. A tendency. I didn't really. Oh my God! Can you edit that out, please?
No.
Just like bleep it out like it said the F word for a long time, and like not bleep out the other cussing. No, it's but I didn't necessarily mean to include that it's more important than spiritual values.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, maybe that's an important thing to note. It really did. Yeah, I mean, you could even call philosophy a spiritual practice.
Exactly. Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is I mean, like the word spiritual has baggage to it. I think like when you hear that, like it's a like you kind of think that it's like, oh, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. But like really, just that word in a vacuum is like, well, if something isn't materialistic, if you're talking, it's like it's something to the spirit is really anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, if you're not thinking about it with that like connotation attached to it, it doesn't necessarily have to be something like, religious when you're talking about spiritual.
Well, if you think about like the idea of the spirit that Greeks usually talk about, like the spirit is like cultivating the inner self kind of thing.
Yeah, like enriching the spirit. Like, I mean, even reading is spiritual practice. It's just, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So what brought us to this topic? Like, are there like personal reasons that you wanted to go into this, or was it just kind of like the connection to what we've been talking about recently, like with last week, or?
I mean, for me, it's kind of something that I've always sort of. I think most of us sort of struggle with like wanting stuff, because like if you think about times where there's not a plenty, or there's not like ample whatever, it kind of makes sense to like really keep things. If you notice, like a lot of depression babies or people raised by people that were young during the Great Depression, they tend to hold on to stuff because you didn't know when you were going to get more of whatever, or you didn't know if what thing that you had would be when it would be useful later on.
Well, I would argue too that like most of our species history was in times of famine like that. We developed, we came through that. Even though right now we're in a time of, at least for most of the people in the Western world, it's like a time of abundance. So much of our species development was in times of famine that I think that a lot of us have that in us through what is the idea of like genetic memory basically, or like I forget what that.
I know what you're talking about.
But it's like the I feel like we have that kind of that trait somewhere deep inside of us just from where we come from, I think.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. And I think that if you look at a lot of the people, even if you think about it as like it doesn't even have to be like that, like sort of, because that genetic memory thing's kind of like and I forget the actual name of it, but that's kind of like a metaphysical sort of thing. And,
yeah.
But you can even say that, like, I think that humans that tended to like hoard things, like that would gather and keep stuff, like food stuffs and things of that nature, or humans that learned that you could salt meat to preserve it, that the traits of holding on to things actually contributed to survival. So those might have just been like genetic traits, not necessarily like the idea that like you got some sort of like memory in your genes that like remembers the lessons of your ancestors, that kind of thing. But yeah,
well, but it's more like, I mean, like you're saying though, if it survival of the fittest, if it helps someone survive in the past, they're going to pass down whatever traits led them to have that behavior, which I like. That's what I mean more, that I think that it's in all of us.
Oh, word. Yeah.
So I think that it is like a human nature thing to have some sort of proclivity towards material goods. And like, I think I touched on this last week too, but it's like also another big part of our species is our use of tools. And those are, those are material objects. I mean, that means what a tool is. And like, I mean, you even find that, people have pride in having nice tools and things. Look at, like whatever trade you're in, if, like electronics, like even, having like a nice PC and things like that is like a point of pride. So I feel like a lot of that is kind of inherent, but it does get to a point where it can be way overboard and can be a very damaging thing.
Yeah, and the way overboard damaging thing is kind of the reason why I thought it would be good to talk about it, because and there's a lot of debate that capitalism makes people more inclined to collect material possessions, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. And it sounds like, based on some of the points that you've made, that you probably agree that there's something in us already that kind of makes us want to collect shit.
Yeah.
And that whatever economy that you live in, like whatever system of government you live in, like that, you'll just want to have stuff anyway. But I guess,
like, I would think so, but I don't know in like other, I'm not sure. Like I know like in Western societies, I think so, but like I guess the argument I was making does kind of fall apart because I can't like map it to everything. But
well, because I mean, like, even okay, so I would say that most Americans, particularly like the ones that like do yoga and like to eat the occasional biryani at the restaurant,
the ones that buy kale.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, gotta hit the stereotype trifecta there. Those individuals, a lot of the time in the West, we have this ideal of like what India is like and what Indian people are like. So that people like have this sort of notion that like, there's like all these gurus just walking around the land and everybody there is like seeking nirvana and they don't eat beef and a lot of them are vegetarians, and like that they're all about spiritual practices and being one, because Brahman is Atman and Atman is Brahman and altered states of consciousness. But now they're all wearing jeans and sunglasses.
Yeah.
Like it's like, and Nike sneakers and stuff like that. But
true, yeah.
Even a society that people think of like that, there's a practice called Jainism.
Okay.
And like there's these like Jain monks, and I think that the only thing they actually own is like this mat. There's a name for the little mat, but they like carry it around with them and they like sit on it and like sleep on it, and that's like all that they own. And even in a culture that people think of as being like very like spiritual and whatever, enlightened or whatever, they're still thought of as like, you only have a mat, dude, that's fucking weird.
Do they have like, do they all have the same mat, or do some of them have nicer mats? I mean, like, is there one dude with like a really pimp like Gucci mat and everyone's like
that would maybe defeat the purpose of it. but I'm
Thanks.
trying to figure out what the little mat they carry around. Like, there's a name that they call it. But I think that everybody, like most people in most parts of the world, look at someone that doesn't have a lot of like stuff and thinks that there's something really weird about it.
Yeah. I think there's something like we talked about this a little bit off the air when we were talking about the idea of possibly doing an episode on minimalism. But I think there's something that like I find I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to like use the word romantic, but it's like there's something that I find really attractive about like just having very few things. Like I forget have you ever seen the movie The Accountant?
Oh yeah, with Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
I fucking love that movie.
Yeah, it was a pretty decent movie. But do you remember like the one that they show a scene where it's like his it was like his kitchen, someone's going through his cabinets and there's literally like one bowl with one spoon and one plate. Like for some reason I really like that. Like the idea of just knowing that it's like if you're not going to have company over, if you're literally living by yourself, you just need your one bowl, and when you're done eating, you can wash that and it'll be ready for your next meal. You don't need a full plate set. Like there's something I like that I find about like that kind of minimalism really, really cool. So I do get where you're coming from though, but because that is almost from a point of choice. If you look at someone who has literally nothing and probably wants to have more, then it's like, like it hits me in a completely different way. But when someone chooses to have less, I find that very empowering and like a strong thing.
Yeah. But why? Why do you find it to be a strong thing?
I'm not sure about like the psychology there, because there's got to be something to it. But like I was saying, like it's the realizing that that's all you need, and that enough, and that is enough. You don't need surplus, I guess. Like I was talking about with the dish, I think is a very simple example of it. But it's just like most people are gonna buy a full plate set of like 4 plates, 4 bowls, all that stuff, like. And maybe even never use it if you're in an apartment by yourself. But if you know that it's like, oh, well, that all is extra and I don't actually need that, I'm just going to be eating by myself and I need this one bowl. There's something very, like I talked about before, like many times probably, the idea of knowing yourself and just being self-aware. I think there's something very self-aware about that idea of just knowing like, oh, this is what I need and this is enough for me.
So, in this case, I find your remarks very interesting. Actually, I'd like to explore it a bit more.
Okay.
It sounds like you're relating this idea to some degree of self-awareness.
Well, at least in that idea, yeah. And
which
I
is
think
pretty cool, actually.
I think really in most aspects it has to be, right? Because at least to me, I think we talked about this last week as well, but like using material goods to try to more often than not, it seems like people are using material goods to try to make up for something they're lacking within themselves. It's it's like you feel like you're not good enough at something, so you buy something that'll make you feel accepted. It's a tool to get by that seems to scream a lack of self-awareness to me. And so the rejection of that and the doing the opposite, I guess, to me, it does seem to have some sort of awareness to it.
So it's interesting. I'm going to try to make an analogy here.
Okay.
I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. So have you heard the idea that some individuals' bodies are more adept at storing glycogen, like in adipose tissue?
Yes.
That at some point that can actually be very beneficial to your survival.
Oh yeah.
And that other individuals' bodies are maybe not quite so adept at doing that, or not so inclined to doing that. And you know, at least where we live now, like it doesn't really matter one way or the other. It's not going to contribute to your survival more because there's always ample food to get to all the time.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's one of the major reasons why there's a lot of body acceptance kind of stuff going on and things like that. And to some degree, I think that stuff is good, but I think it kind of works the same way with this, that perhaps people that are more inclined to keep things at some point that may have contributed to their survival.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because I mean, that's kind of what you were saying with the genetics thing.
Yeah,
but others of us don't have that tendency, and now I feel like the analogy is it doesn't matter either way because you know, at least in the West, like most of us are pretty prosperous. Like even poor people, like if you can eat meat every day, you're fucking rich.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's this number like blew my mind. If you make at least, I think it's like somewhere close to $30,000 a year, you're in the top 1% worldwide. Even though you're not in the top 1% in America, like that is the top 1% worldwide. And it's like, that is almost poverty level in America for a lot of people. Like there are many places in America where you can't even get by on $30,000 a year. So that's like a stat. That's amazing to realize that there's like around the world, like that is the top 1% actually.
Yeah, like in LA, you're fucked.
Yeah, San Francisco.
Like like you can't live anywhere like on 30K. That's just so crazy to think about.
Yep. It's an interesting perspective, yeah, because
Do you think that not necessarily about material possessions, but do you think that most humans have a tendency to just want more? Like of whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that, I mean, a lot of us, we learn the discipline to teach ourselves now, but I do think that like the primal instinct deep down is probably to want more.
Yeah, I mean, wanting more is probably generally not a very beneficial thing.
You say as you
for most people.
You did it on purpose.
Yeah, I was playing that up. I was like, this will be funny. Yeah. Because you know, I say it jokingly. Like I'll be like, well, you know, like I figure if one scoop of ice cream's good, then 2 scoops must be better. And there's some situations where more really is better. But when we're talking about like having stuff, then probably not so much. It's funny because people think about gluttony as being like eating too much, but you can be a glutton in a lot of ways.
Well, I think someone in chat was bringing up like using an emote just to bring up an interesting question though. Is this a symptom of capitalism, and is there a better way, or is you gonna like where am I trying to go with this? You'll
have to educate me. I don't know what that emote means.
Well, I think it's an emote used to joke about the ideas of like socialism and people that are like super far left. Like, do you know what like a tanky is? Or like people, you know, like a lot of people like on the far left right now are like actually advocating like socialism or Marxism. Yeah. So it's like the idea then is, would that be a cure for materialism?
Well,
does this come from capitalism, or does capitalism at least exacerbate it?
Well, no, because the value's placed on the same thing, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Because the thing that's making you unequal is like wealth and material possessions. So the thing that needs to be equalized is wealth and material possessions, but it's focused on the same thing. I mean, at least from my perspective, my estimation of it, from what I can see and what I understand with my senses, like that it seems that it focuses on the same thing, and I don't necessarily believe it to be a cure. Because did you ever see the movie Enemy at the Gates with Jude Law?
Yeah, it was a war movie, right? Like a
sniper? I think it was in the fight for Stalingrad.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, mainly because they were in a city and there were snipers. So Stalingrad, I would think. Also, if you guys haven't watched that Netflix original documentary on World War II, fucking great. only reason why I'm recalling this out of my head is because of that. So I'm not that smart. I just watch TV. But there's a scene where there's a female sniper, because there were actually a few of them. Actually, there were quite a lot of females in that conflict on the Russian side, and she was smitten with Jude Law's character.
Okay.
And there was another character in the film who was also kind of like into this person, and he was talking about, the whole idea of socialism was to make things equal, and for us to not want for anything, and to not covet the things of others. But regardless of what you do with money and possessions, that there will always be something that you want that someone else has. Yeah. And he's talking in a very like sort of passive aggressive tone to Jude Law's character, saying like, I love her and you have her and it's not fair. And that's not necessarily like about material possessions. That's actually about the affections or the attraction of another human.
Yeah. But it's just the same idea though. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just an interesting point to make that when you center the thing that's making things unequal around that, then it's the same idea. It's just pushed in a different direction. It's like more things than me unequal. Yeah. Same things as me equal. Yeah. But it's about things, and it's about money. And resources. And for me, I don't know that capitalism exacerbates it, because I think that being in a type of system in which everybody has the same, I don't think that stops people's desire for more.
I think you're right. Yeah. I do. I mean, I don't have like the data to back it up, but I do think that like I was saying, I think it's more of an inherent thing that is deep down. I think it's like like I was saying about like the animalistic part of humanity that always wants more. Yeah.
And in some cases, I mean,
that is very true. Socialism is not necessarily that everyone's equal. It's more about like the working, the seizing the means of production. Yeah.
That's communism, though, I thought.
See, I don't know that is correct, but it is, socialism is under the
Oh, he's Googling it.
I am Googling it. I don't.
Did you just put your pen in your mouth?
I do that a lot.
You look so smart when you do that. You're like, so put on your glasses and like,
That's how at work. That's how I make it look like I'm busy. While I'm like I'm sitting scrolling through Reddit, and it's like,
Stroke your temple with your pen. It's like, like I do this thing.
See, okay, I'm like not. I'm so not a lefty. I mean, I'm like probably liberal in most areas of politics, but I'm not a lefty as far as like, I don't understand much about communism and socialism. From what I'm seeing here, one of the main key differences is actually in the means of achieving the ends. In communism, a violent revolution in which the workers rise up against the middle and upper class seems to be an inevitable part. Socialism is a less rigid, more flexible ideology, but I think a lot of the tenets are the same.
I was under the impression that socialism is a necessary stop on the way to communism.
Oh, mate. See, yeah, I don't know. I don't.
But then Marxism is like a different idea altogether, because that highlights class struggle, and in that type of philosophy, an uprising is necessary. Like it's part of it.
And from what this is saying, that's almost part of communism as well. Which, yeah, I mean, because communism does trace its roots to the manifesto, which was Marx, right? So, I mean, yeah, it has to. But anyways, we're kind of getting like a slightly off topic. But the
very,
yeah. But the idea, though, that I think you're 100% right. I don't think it matters what economic system someone is in. It may be, well, if there was an economic system, let's like create hypothetical. It is literally everyone owns the same amount of everything. whatever we're going to call that, equalism. Everyone is equal in every single way as far as material possessions go. That eliminates the effect of materialism, of someone having more than someone else. It doesn't eliminate the symptom within everyone's brain. I think that people are still going to want to have more, and I think that that's what we're really talking about here is the desire and what goes on with the psychology of it, right? Which I think that that's more important than the effect, at least in my opinion. But
yeah, I had to think about it, but yeah, because it's more important, I think, to okay, this is like maybe a fucking weird thing to say, but
I love when you preempt a sentence with that.
It's a little like, ugh, seriously? It's very extreme.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go way out there.
Okay, I'm ready.
So instead of someone, okay, if someone is a pedophile, there's something wrong with them.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's something a little different, like developmentally something went wrong, whatever, any number of things. I would much fucking rather that person, because you can make it illegal, you can prosecute people, you can punish them for molesting or statutory rape, things like that, and that's good. We should do that. We need to have negative consequences for what's thought of as unacceptable in our society.
I agree. Yeah.
And so it's good for someone who's a pedophile not to do those things.
Yeah.
But I'd much prefer that pedophile find a professional who can help them through the sort of developmental issues they have in sexual attraction and try to fix the underlying thing that's going on in their mind, use some kind of therapy to try to sort of remedy that. Yeah. I think that's much better than the person still feeling that way and having the stuff in their head. And I like this pen thing. I feel so smart. If you're listening to us on anything other than YouTube, you should be watching YouTube so you can see how smart I look with this pen.
You look pretty smart.
Do you see what I'm saying though?
Yes,
like I would much rather that instead of them just, I mean, don't do it, but instead of them just not doing it, like, why don't you treat the underlying thing? Like, why don't you find a way to overcome that nature? And I think that the economic system in which you live, it doesn't necessarily help the underlying thing. It doesn't really develop the spirit, if you will.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I need to put this pen down because I just said comma, if you will.
I love it. Oh, I'm so happy.
If you will. Yeah. If you would, good sir.
Per se.
But if thou willst.
But the Jesus.
Vis-a-vis.
I think that is 100% correct. And if it is like a deep, like seated part of human nature though, how is it something that you combat? I mean, I know that, like, of course that is the benefit of being human is that we have the power of like mind over our animalistic instincts. Like we're able to, we have discipline that most animals don't have. We're able to control ourselves. But where does it start? Like, how do you begin that process?
Yeah, you know what? My analogy, it doesn't work. That analogy doesn't work at all.
Why is that? What?
Because there's nothing in human nature, as we're calling it, that makes somebody a pedophile. This is something that's abnormal. Whereas
that is true. Yeah.
If we're talking about stuff and keeping things, that is much more a part of being a human than the other thing. So my analogy is completely flawed.
Yeah. Okay. What about
the philosopher in me can't let it stand.
That's fair. Okay. What about I think this is actually like a great analogy because we even talked about how this was similar before. Someone who's overweight and overeating, and maybe they're like genetically predisposed for their body to store adipose tissue better. But like we're saying, like it's also a controlled behavior that they can address. And you can either just address the behavior or you can address the mentality that's causing the behavior.
Yeah. So it's This okay, yeah. That works better. Like I fucking went all the way out there for no fucking reason with that analogy. What a waste of time.
You went all the way to pedophile and didn't even have to.
I did.
You could have just stopped
trillion.
at overweight. You went.
Oh God, I'm such an idiot. But yes, okay. So yeah. Okay, I'm seeing what you're saying now, and that does work much better. That it's recognizing in the current state of things that it's not that something could be addressed to decrease the likelihood of storing an excessive, an unhealthy amount of adipose tissue, because there's a certain amount that's fine.
Yeah.
And it's not on the cover of GQ or Cosmo. It's walking down the street in downtown with regular average people that, you know, have some real good LDLs and yeah, triglycerides and shit.
Oh, okay. I was like, what are
Yeah, I don't even low density lipoproteins.
Yeah, no, my mind wasn't on like actual like running blood numbers. I thought LDL was like just short for something that I was like something the kids were saying nowadays. Like, I don't know, like low dangling lips or something. Like I don't know what it meant. Like I don't know. Like, dude, I want some LDLs, man. That sounds like.
I can't take you anywhere.
Probably not.
I can't even take you on the internet. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. But that's much better. So it's addressing the fact that because we are capable of getting so much shit, like stuff, that we need to address the fact that while it's very accessible and available, that we should develop and exercise the willpower to not get too much of that shit.
And I like this analogy too, because unlike with most things, like if you have a problem with materialism that you're trying to address, it's not something you can just quit cold turkey. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm just going to stop buying stuff. It's the same with overeating. You can't just say like, okay, well, I'm going to quit food. There is a certain amount that is necessary, and then you can go above and beyond, and you can go overboard. I like that food and purchasing things are the same way. It's not like we're talking about heroin addiction, where like there's a certain amount of heroin that's necessary, and then you need to stop. It's like that's one of the things you could just say like, okay, well, you quit that cold turkey and you cut it out of your life, but you can't just cut making purchases out of your life. That's not something that's possible.
That's true. Yeah. It's maybe exercising some discernment, I guess, or some judgment, or because for me at least, like when I buy something, I think to myself, what other stuff, like how many things can I replace with this one thing? So especially with like clothing or something like that. Yeah, some stuff it's like
you don't think about that when you go to buy a cheeseburger. It's like how many chicken nuggets can I replace with this cheeseburger? but yeah, that makes sense for like equipment purchases or bigger item purchases or tools, I guess too. Like like a lot of things that would make sense for. So that kind of goes towards like the minimalism idea, where you're kind of condensing a collection of things where it's like, okay, can I replace multiple other things with this and shrink my clutter? Like, yeah.
Speaking of which, do you want a cheap espresso machine?
No, I'm good. No.
Okay. It sucks. I want to get rid of it.
I feel you. There's a coffee machine at work that, I mean, like it's horrible coffee, but it's free coffee every day. So it's like literally that is like that's where I get my coffee. Like, oh man, like I know you would.
Kind of coffee machine, Ty?
I don't even know. Like the kind that's connected to the water line.
Does it start with a K and end with an Erig?
Oh no. It's like it's actual coffee, but I mean it's the kind that you would see in like a truck stop diner. It's like an industrial like.
So it looks like it should have been like in a plant with like soot covered people with no safety standards in like the 1920s.
Yes, that is exactly where this coffee machine was made. Yeah.
Industrial, like World War II, like 1940 something kind of. Okay.
I mean the urns are like metal, They're actual like metal urns that it brews the coffee on down into. Like it is industrial strength coffee. But it is, I mean, I know it's not like good. We looked up the company though, and remember like you even said that like whatever roast wasn't like that, or whatever sourcing of the beans wasn't that bad. I forget, you said something about it that it was like apparently it's not horrible, but
oh, you mentioned them to me at some point.
yeah, we Googled it, yeah. But either way, like what I'm saying though is like that's like I recognize that I like coffee, but I feel like this is one of those ideas where it's like it would be nice to have that, but I know I don't need it. I know that getting the free cup at work is pretty much enough for me. So yeah, I can say no to a coffee machine or an espresso machine.
So, because it's interesting because I'm recognizing that we wanted to, or we did. Think English. Were we gonna do minimalism next week?
Sure. I think it would flow the best probably.
Because like some of the stuff that like we're talking about, it's kind of gonna like bleed into and like kind of overflow with that, but I don't necessarily think that's a problem.
Correct. Yeah, I don't either.
I was thinking that it was, but now that I think about it really hard, it's not really a problem. So
I think when talking about like treating the issue or trying to make changes, the biggest thing that jumps out to me is the idea of trying to find self-worth in items. Like that's, I think, what needs to be really treated is like when I think of like someone being materialistic, it's more like it's not just wanting nice things for the sake of having them or wanting nice things because they're of good quality. Like there are legitimate reasons to want a high quality item. It's wanting them to treat some sort of feeling of lacking, or a lot of times like using it as a tool to make up for something else. It's the joke of the guy in the sports car or the huge lifted truck that like he's compensating for something, right? Like that type of materialism, but like more of like a spiritual compensation, that if you're not feeling fulfilled in life, or you're not like necessarily feeling complete with yourself, that you can make up for it by buying and owning certain things. Do you think that that's like a prime motivator? Like, because I see like two main motivations. I see that, and I see trying to attract a mate. Those are like the two like main materialistic motivations I see.
Yeah, that made me actually consider quite a lot of things, because I think that there's because it's so funny to me, because every time somebody says that, like, oh, hey, you think he's compensating for something? Mm-hmm. It's like there's somebody saying, hey, their penis is very small. But it's like, I think the next time that happens, I'm going to be like, maybe we should not be such assholes about this. Perhaps we should back up for a moment and recognize that individual could very easily be deeply like damaged, that there could be something really, really deep there that they're trying to compensate for that has nothing to do with their genitals.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's funny. There's actually it's a Japanese guy, a YouTuber, that talks about Japanese culture and talks about some contrasts. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because in Japan, there's a lot of like that, very tough, macho kind of thing, like with that men are to be providers, and the prestige of being a company man, and those sorts of things. And many people are getting away from that, like modern people. But it's interesting because I wish I could remember the guy's name. He was talking about how in Japan you never talk about penis size. Like, it's not something that anybody gives a shit about there. It's not something that's relevant to attempt to like emasculate somebody if you're trying to do so. And it's interesting because maybe we should, and that's another, this is going all kinds of places. Mm-hmm. That's another fucking problem, because there's an episode of Queer Eye, actually. I don't know if you watch any of the new show on Netflix, but Well, it's not that new anymore, but
Yeah, I was gonna say I've seen some, but
Yeah.
I didn't know how new it was.
yeah, it's I think it's been around for a couple of years now. But either way, I think the show's brilliant. But there's one episode where they're talking about there's a man that he's having some issues with depression,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, instead of talking shit about that person's penis, which is fucking stupid,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you should, and maybe that's part of the reason why so many like males have such issues with asking for help. That we don't think about what's clearly happening, that this individual isn't compensating for something as trivial as, like, you know, their ability to keep a stiffy or whatever. It's something deeper than that, that maybe they don't know how to develop that, you know, the spiritual side of things, so to speak. And when I say spiritual, I think when you say spiritual, we mean cultivating the inner self, the principle and the discipline and the ethics and the morality and all the things.
Exactly.
Morality based on philosophy and reasonable thought.
Well, I mean, basically, like, the way I look at it is, like, if you look at life as having two sides, there's the physical side and the spiritual side. Like, I put them into those two baskets if you're talking about, like, anything that can be part of life. Like,
yeah, man, that's nuts. And like and some people, and it also might be laziness, because it's like, you know, I could be a better human in every way and cultivate like true discipline and true, like, admirable personality traits, but instead I'm just gonna fucking buy shit and look cool. And it's not even necessarily that an individual is hurting, it's that they just don't fucking care.
Yeah, that's
or
yeah.
that they believe that the things are more, that those show more of their value or whatever than the inner kind of ideas or truths. But the thing that's interesting is that you will find on many occasions that there are people that have a lot of shit that when you really get close, there's nothing there.
Yes, yeah.
And
like I'm saying, they're for lack of like pointing fingers, it's like it seems like they're making up for it. They may be aware that there's not much there, and it's like, well, okay, I can make up for that by collecting these things and having these things.
not even making up for it, like thinking that doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, true, yes,
yeah. Because I think that there's something. I think that if somebody truly believed that there was something to be had there, that they probably would. Or well, actually, I take that back, because it's entirely possible that somebody, because I just said it like a couple minutes ago, that somebody could recognize that those are good things, but they just don't fucking feel like it.
I think that's less likely, though. I don't think they're.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that most healthy people, or even reasonably healthy people, like, I mean healthy, like, regular person, neurotic, like not actually insane or mentally ill. That most, that makes sense, because I think that if people realize there was some value in it, they would do something about it. So it seems that the definition that I initially said I wasn't really getting at, I think it's really valid, based on the points that you're making right now, that to call it more important than the internal development of like the spiritual self, according to all those Greek people back in the day. You know what really pisses me off?
A lot of things.
I'm going to go on a tangent here, but there's probably a lot of really, really brilliant Greek women who said a lot of really fucking clever shit, and it's lost forever.
Probably, yeah.
Makes me really fucking mad. Yeah. Sorry, that was beside the point, but it does piss me off.
No, that is fair, though. I have those like same thoughts of what knowledge did we lose in the burning of the Library of Alexandria? Like there's just stuff we'll probably never know. It is like really unfortunate. It is, it's irritating.
Like when the engineers landed after Prometheus that created us in that movie. So I guess, I think we're getting to the point in the conversation, because I think, so wait, hold on. I have another like idea to kind of pose here.
Okay.
So what if because I think that what we're getting to here Like I'm thinking out loud now, instead of because it's like I start thinking I have a good thought, then I think out loud now because it's not a good thought. I think that intention is what we're talking about the most here, right? That if you have a bunch of shit, why do you have a bunch of shit?
Yeah. Well, yes, and the intention can be subconscious. Because I would say that the person, the hypothetical person we're talking about, they may not be aware consciously of the reason why they have all that shit.
That goes back to the self-awareness part that you were talking about earlier. Like this is all I have and this is all I need.
Or I mean, like I'm saying, or I feel like there's a lot of people that have a lot of shit, and in their mind they're probably being honest when they say, oh, I just think this stuff is cool, but really deep down there's subconsciously an issue that they're trying to cut, like we're talking about, they're trying to make up for something by thinking that this stuff is going to make them cool, rather than just saying like, oh, I like this stuff. Like I feel like that may happen a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, because there's fuck, man. Like I'm just like, I'm thinking back to like things that I knew at certain times that what I was doing was, because there's a certain point I got to where I got crazy about clothing. And I learned a lot of cool like lessons that I think are beneficial, and I try to share those with other people. Like how should a blazer fit you, and where should the yoke on a shirt come to on the back of your shoulders, and where should the stitching be on your t-shirt, and how do you know if something's too big or too small, or like how to pick out a shirt that fits you, how to talk to your tailor, how to talk to your barber or stylist, like, and a lot of that stuff was good, but there's a point that I got to. I remember actually. I went out one night with a good friend of mine, Zach. Hey, Zach. And I was. Oh God, it was so douchey. Okay, so I was in an Express 1MX shirt. That was back when they had like the stretchy shirts that wrinkled like hell.
Yep.
And like you'd have to like iron the fucking placket on the buttons every time you dried it. And I had like a skinny tie on, which those are fashionable for a while. I think that they still are in certain situations, but at the time they were very fashionable, and it was like the only tie you could pick up at most like trendy clothing stores.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I had like my top button unbuttoned, and like the knot was just the right amount crooked, and you could see just enough of like the thinner part of the tie coming out from the back.
Yep. And
I was wearing some, I don't remember, they were like driving loafers, and
I don't even know what that means. Driving
like the loafers with like the really thin sole, and they kind of look like moccasins almost.
Okay.
And I remember we were out, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm gonna pick up some chicks, bruh. Like that's not really like what I was talking like, but that my idea was like, I will finally attract someone by wearing this clothing.
But if you were to write that character for a movie right now, the line would be, yeah, man, I'm gonna track some chicks, brah. Or
and then I do like a B-reel of the guy like crying in panic in front of the mirror, trying to figure out exactly where to put the knot of the tie, and like watching a YouTube video with like an equally douchey guy, like with the really swoopy like cropped haircut. And he'd say bro, just like that, bro, in the video. And I remember Zach was giving me shit. He was like, dude, what the fuck is this? And that was at the time like where bootcut jeans were starting to come out of fashion, but they were still somewhat fashionable. And the ones I had were like fitted like Banana Republic jeans. I fucking miss those jeans actually. I think I was wrestling with one of my nephews and they ripped.
Oh, that sucks.
I've actually fucked up a lot of jeans like playing rough with the kids, but I remember like Zach was giving me shit. And I'm like, dude, this is how I roll. And he was like, dude, you don't roll. Nothing about your roles. Who are you? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Where is your tight black band t-shirt, you fucking weirdo?
Yeah.
Like, did you leave your Slayer shirt at home? And I was like, oh my God, it was a ridiculous night.
But at that time, you probably felt like you were being genuine, right? No, okay.
I was like, I knew. I was like, I didn't understand. I was like, oh my God, my back itches. Oh, okay, I got it. All right. Yeah.
Dude, I wish you need to get one of those extendable back scratchers, just so when we're sitting here, you can just be like, whoosh, and just scratch, and then just collapse it back down. That would be so awesome.
I feel like I'd look like a James Bond supervillain if I did that.
I'd be so into it.
Oh, Mr. Bond. Like,
if we were just in the middle of a conversation and you did that, I would be so happy with my life. All right, I'm sorry.
I feel like our tangents are at least somewhat entertaining.
I hope
for us.
Yeah, I'm entertained.
We just go on the tangents that are entertaining for us and hope they're entertaining to you. But like, I think that there's something in me that I thought, this is not working. Me is not enough. Mm-hmm. What do I need to do to attract someone? Okay. And I thought, you need to look this and this and this and this.
Yep.
Look at that and that and that and this and that.
Well, which is interesting because it involved you need to own this and this and this and this as well. Like it came down to that. Yeah.
Get the material possessions, look the certain way, show up in your, Jetta that have rims that like cost half the fucking value of the car because you're a tumbling dickweed. But that's the thing is that, and if anybody looked at me and thought, what a douche, it's like, no, I'm deeply wounded. I'm not a douche at all. I am fragile and I need your help. And so that bro, this is fucked up.
But this
is the second time in a month I've gotten opened up on the air.
But that's probably the case for a lot of what we're talking about. Like I mean, just like what we talked about with the trucks and the cars and stuff. When you see someone and you make the joke about they're compensating, it's like I mean, yeah, the joke is they're compensating, but the funny non-joke you can say to that then is like you can then look at someone deadpan and be like, yeah, their mom may not have hugged them enough as a child. And it's like, well, yeah, oh shit, maybe it's not about their penis. Maybe it is about an actual emotional scar. Yeah.
Like maybe, like any number of things. Mm-hmm. Like that one really bad breakup. Maybe they got cheated on when they were 19 or and that just fucked up everything. And it's crazy to think. But the other thing is then I realized, because it was within the last, I'm going to say within probably the last 5, 6, 7 years, that's when I kind of realized that with a lot of the stuff that I was doing, and this is another thing that comes up a lot, like when we've talked about like social anxiety, or we talked about self-esteem, and we'll do an episode on people pleasing at some point, that it's valuing the other over the self.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that recently, I might have mentioned this, but I think I might have told you about it, but not on the air. A friend of mine, she was telling me, like, she's like, a friend at work, she's like, oh my God, I am so tired of like all these bitches in this group chat, like talking about how am I gonna get a man? I want a man in my life. And I was like, why don't you tell them to like start going to the gym and get some hobbies and reading some books and do some stuff that's good for them, and then when they develop the self, the other will value that. And that's the thing, is that it was more, I want these other people to, it's like what I said, I think it was last week, I am who I think you think I am.
Hold on. I am who I think you think I am. Yeah. Okay, yes.
So to break it down, like the impression I think I'm giving you is who I'm convinced I am.
Yes.
But I don't even know what that impression is.
Exactly.
And I think that it puts, by going out with the material things, like this is the shit that I have, like this is my $700 blazer. These are my $600 jeans. These are my $250 shoes. This is my $80,000 car. This is my $750,000 house. Do you like me? That it should be.
Well, I didn't learn anything about you. I learned about your stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's like, or more like, these are the character traits that I have cultivated as a person because I value myself. And if you happen to find those things valuable also, that is good. But I developed and cultivated these traits specifically for myself.
That reminded me
a better human.
That reminded me specifically of like, it is another podcast I listen to that a lot of times they're just watching, like funny internet videos and kind of making fun of people. Like, but there's this character I've seen often on there that, I shouldn't even the guy is a character. He literally even if even if he's just being his genuine self in his Instagram videos, he is a fucking character because this dude is ridiculous. But it's like his whole he's listing his traits about why he's an important person, and half the traits are things he owns. And it's like that is a mentality that is it's deep seated somewhere in our society. But like you're talking about, where that is who you are these things that you own, rather than it being about things that you've done or things you've accomplished, who you actually are as a person. No, that's defined by my car, the fact that I, have this job and then I make this amount of money. That's who I am.
Yeah. My dad, because like I said, he moved to the U.S. when he was 22. He's almost 80 now. And not today, but you've heard me say it before. And for any of our loyal viewers, they've also heard it. He would say, it's a common saying, but it's interesting to me because my dad picked up so much about American culture so quickly, and he loved to hang out in California. When he was younger, California was a place he really liked to go.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. Actually, I should probably ask him. I think he used to, if he had to fly through LA, I think he would plan a long layover. So he could leave LAX and go goof off and then come back. But he said it's a common saying, but I feel like for him, he learned it firsthand as becoming an American, because he very much is. He's much more American than I am in some ways. He would say, if you meet someone in Georgia, they'll ask you what church you go to. If you meet someone in Los Angeles, they'll ask you what kind of car you drive.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But for me, it's as someone who enjoys cars, dude, I actually weirded out someone at the car dealership today because I called in to get some service done on my car. And they're like, is this the 2015 Passat or the 2003 GLI? And I was like, oh, the GLI's in there still?
Yeah.
I was like, I miss her.
Yeah.
I was like, it's like hearing about an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, there's silence on the other end. I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm one of those weird car people. It's like, oh, it's okay, bro. I get it.
That happened to me recently. I went to a place that there's one right next to my house, but the last time I had been to one was when I lived in Asheville, I guess. And
was it the Infinity?
Yeah. So he was like, yeah, you still driving that G35? And I was like, no, I'm not. I miss it.
It's like I'm gonna stalk her on Facebook now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved that car though. I had some times, but that's the thing, is that as someone who enjoys cars, I do think it's fun to guess what someone drives. I'll see some Toyota Keys and I'll try to guess what model. And in some ways you can almost kind of peg people. And it's interesting though, because I can, after meeting somebody and talking to them for about 20 minutes, I can often guess what model it is if I know the make.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So in some ways, the car does describe the person.
What do you think that, okay, so if in Georgia they ask what church you go to, if in LA they ask what car do you drive, what do they ask in North Carolina?
Who's your football team?
That's what I was gonna say. Who's your football team? That is what
if it's depending on your age, many people in North Carolina are fans of something else, especially if they're a bit older, because there were no Panthers.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I felt a moment of alienation as a former watcher of NFL football. Somebody said, "Is it 49ers or Chiefs?" And I was like, "Are you talking about the Super Bowl?" And I think everybody thought I was kidding. They're like, hardy, har, 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 ha,
Are those
ha,
the-
ha. And I was,
the two
apparently
teams
they're
going?
playing in the Super Bowl.
Okay. I saw some meme that the only joke that I got, the only thing I understood from it was that the Patriots aren't in the Super Bowl this year, and a lot of people are happy about that. But I don't remember which two teams are in.
No. Who is your college basketball team? Not even that. Is it Duke or UNC?
Yeah, true.
That's what they ask.
Yeah.
That it's that and football team.
Yeah.
Oh,
if you've made it this far in the video, comment below and tell us in your state what the question would be.
Yeah, when someone meets you, what's the first thing they want to know? Yeah,
I bet there's a different, like in every state of the U.S., I bet there's like a different question that's they like go to.
I feel like in most places there probably is. And like fucking Yankees or Mets.
Yep.
That's probably a common one in New York. Yeah, and I think that I think in Delaware, I'll bet you it's Eagles or oh my god, Steelers.
Okay, so you know a lot more about sports than I do.
Well, do you know what people in Delaware do for fun?
Did people in Delaware know what to do for fun?
Yeah.
Oh, what do they do?
They go to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Like everything cool is there.
Gotcha.
It's like,
okay.
So it's.
Oh yeah, for Lee, it's what football team you support, but it's soccer.
Wait,
team,
Lee, you're a Liverpool fan, right? Oh,
no,
I may have just insulted him.
Manchester United. You should know that.
Oh God, I did insult you.
Yeah,
Fuck.
he is Manchester all the way, baby.
Do we have a Liverpool fan? Oh, we talked about Scousers at one point, which is maybe why.
Yeah, Arzo was team. Yeah, I don't remember who he. I don't remember who his team was though.
Well, it's like once again we're getting off of it a bit. But
true. Yeah.
It's like I love it when people are like, "So who's your NFL team?" And I'm like, I don't watch sports. They're like, it's like a human blue screening. It's like, if this is the first time you've seen this message, restart your computer.
I hate it though. Okay, so like honest opinion time. That is the honest answer for me. But I feel like giving the honest answer sounds like I'm trying to be edgy. Would it be better to just like pretend like I have a team and just have an answer? But then I can get caught in a lie, and I don't want to do then they like start asking me about players, and I'm like, oh fuck, I actually have no idea. Or like,
what response is edgy exactly?
Well, it's like saying that I don't watch football. Like I always that's my answer when someone asks me who my team is, but it feels like I'm being like that contrarian. Like,
you know what you should do?
What?
You should say, I don't watch sports, but let me tell you about all the stuff I own.
That's a very good way to circle back.
That works. Hey, I mean, it's like there's nothing. Once again, we're getting on intention here. So in that case, if you are doing it, if you don't watch sports just because everybody else does, then that makes you a contrarian. But if you truly just don't find it appealing, there's nothing wrong with that.
I'd have to do. See, that's hard to. That's where I get to. I think a lot with. I think I get to this question in many different avenues, but it's like, how do you know when you're lying to yourself? I feel like I just don't like sports, but I also know that like deep down, if I'm 100% honest with myself, I know that I crave ways to set myself apart from others. I know that I mean it's sad, it's pathetic, but it's like it's like I feel like part of why I wanted to be vegetarian as a young kid was that it was like, oh, here's something I can do that makes me a little like little things like that. But it's like, so it's like, how can I honestly know that, am I really not into sports, or is it like, oh, everyone else is, so I should not like this?
Yeah, I mean that goes hand in hand with what we're talking about too, because it's like, do you really have a passion for shoes? Do shoes really give you that much joy? Like, why do you have so many of them? And like, I would say, I'm getting to the point where I don't own a lot of stuff, but I have become almost hyper materialistic. Because it's like the best thing. Do your research, spend the money, but spend it well on the best thing. But it's also, but there's another thing though, is that I don't value that over spiritual development, so to speak, or
Yes.
I'll just call it improvement of the self.
Yeah.
And I
Is
think
that why you're a co-host on a self-improvement podcast?
that might have something to do
May
with
go
it.
hand in hand.
Maybe, but to come back to it's funny because like I'm actually on subject and now I'm gonna leave subject to come back to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
That it's, hey, do you want to come watch Conor McGregor fight Cowboy with me?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, for some reason I thought you were looking at Lee. The way you asked that, I thought you were asking Lee. Where? Like in person? Are you actually going to the fight?
Fly over across the fucking pond, otherwise known as the Atlantic, and watch UFC.
Wait, are you actually are you going to the fight in person, or like you mean watch?
No, I'm gonna go to a fucking bar where like there's chicken wings and beer.
The way you said
have it
that,
on pay-per-view.
Like I don't know. I didn't know if you were like actually going. But
Do you want it? It's gonna be fucking entertaining as shit.
When is the fight? When is this?
I can't remember. I think it's a couple weeks.
Okay. Is it a Saturday? Are they usually on Saturdays? I don't know how. I know that next Saturday I've got to work all Saturday.
What? Oh, quit your job. Come watch UFC with
we're
me.
doing a server upgrade that has to be done out of off business hours, and apparently I'm IT.
Oh, that just happened 3 days ago. Fuck.
I was about to say, isn't that this big fight that everyone was talking about that lasted not long enough? Yeah.
It was. Don't spoil it. What the fuck? You know what? Bruce Willis was dead the whole time. Fuck you.
I don't know who won. I just know that the memes that are going on around right now like
this is why I don't have social networking.
It's all about how men now understand what a woman complains about whenever the thing they've been looking forward for weeks only lasted 30 seconds or something like that.
So there's that was actually Reddit. That was I mean it's pretty funny. But I asked it. It was rhetoric. Like I was trying to make a point. Because I was curious what your answer would be to determine like if you really don't like sports. Because for me, like I don't consider combat sports a sport. I consider it human instinct.
Okay.
So it's like watching people do what most of us are genetically predisposed to do if we need to.
Well, to answer your question like openly and honestly, then yes, I would be interested to go to hang out with you. I was not at all interested in the UFC fight. It was more just
watching people knock the shit out of each other is like the best thing ever. That's why rugby's so fucking cool. But yeah, and also I'm realizing now like that I would have like a potential partner or someone I was dating come over and I'd be like, hey, come look at all my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like now I realize that like, okay, do you know Ryan Martini, the bassist?
That name sounds right. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Rhino from Mudvayne.
Yes. Yeah.
So I told you that I actually got to talk to him a couple times.
Yeah.
He's like really interesting, very wise. He's really old now. Older than you'd think, which should make you feel very old. Mm-hmm. But he was talking about his
when did
his
LD50 come out? It was like 99, right?
It was like 98.
Yeah, he was probably 20 then. So yeah.
Yeah. So he and I were talking, and he was talking about his bass, and he actually let me play it, which was fucking cool as shit. And he's had the same bass since that album LD50 came out.
Yeah.
And it's the bass he recorded the album with. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy shit. And he just sees no need. Because for him, it's the connection with the instrument and the thing that it does, mm-hmm. that it's more the act itself. And for me, like, that's why when I talk about like motorcycles, like I don't need to have the most like prestigious thing. Mm-hmm. It's the experience of riding the motorcycle, which is fun for me. And like, you know, I've said it before that, you know, it's like, oh, Ducatis are so rad. Well, yes, they're cool and they're very pretty to look at. Well, mm-hmm. most of them anyway. And they sound fucking amazing, but they're just not that much more fun than any other motorcycle. Like you can have fun on any bike without spending a shitload of money. Like my bike was cheap as shit. Like I have a single cylinder 373 and I fucking love that motorcycle. And I think that if you can recognize that the experience of the thing mm-hmm. is above the thing itself. Like there's a really cool YouTube channel I cannot remember the name of, but it's this channel where these people have these very unique cars, which are not the newest thing. they're not the most prestigious thing, but they tell the story of, this is what I did when I got the car. This is what I did to restore it.
Okay.
These are the lengths I went to find the original cover for the glove box, just so the car would be what it was then.
That's cool.
Like, this is that this vehicle connects me to the time that it came from. Like, I feel like every time I get into this car in my bomber jacket and my Converse All-Stars, that I'm in 1988.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm listening to like Devo and Duran Duran, and it's a connection with the past. Or this is the car that we found that we didn't know about in my grandfather's shed, and every time I get in this vehicle, it's a connection to that, to the times that my grandfather may have had in this vehicle, or maybe not.
Yeah.
And I think that as long as the experience of the thing outweighs the thing itself, that you're probably on the right track.
I think that's a good like a good marker. Yeah. I think it like I talked about earlier, I think it may be tough to be honest with yourself, but I think if you do try to really explore that thought process and think about the emotional connection to something and be honest with yourself, you could determine and get to the root of like, okay, let's really look at my motivation here. Why do I want to own this, or why do I own this? Yeah.
And as long as there is a healthy amount of self-development, of making the inner human, the thoughts, the ideas, and the principles, as long as there's an effort put into those things, it's okay to have stuff.
Yeah.
As long as we know that we're still putting effort into the other things that we're doing.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
I mean,
and,
like with everything we talk about, of course, there's balance. I mean, we brought that up earlier. Like that, you can't just stop buying things. Things are necessary to have. We're not, of course, going to advocate the I'm sorry. What was the area where the monks that literally only own the mat?
Oh, they're I think they exist in several parts of Southeast Asia, but they're called Jains.
Gotcha. Yeah, but so, like, we're not advocating, giving away literally every worldly possession, but it's the trying to really look at your emotional connection to your possessions and figure out why you own the things you do, and if there's a psychological reason behind it that maybe you're not happy with, or I don't know. I think that there's a lot of people that myself included have materialistic tendencies and need to be honest with themselves to recognize it.
Can I stop for just a minute and point a rephrase?
Sure.
And perhaps instead of happy with, things that you are not finding truest fulfillment in.
Oh, I like that better. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to, with all due respect, sir.
No, that is a strictly better way of saying that.
Otherwise, well said.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But yeah, I mean, I do think, we're getting kind of like near, we're running out of time, so we may like save this for next week, because I think it'll also fit in with minimalism. But I want to talk. We started to talk about a little bit. I think we're both in the same boat where we both feel that personal responsibility is a very important thing. Realizing that you have your own responsibility over your actions, that you can take control and change things is an incredibly important thing. But along with that, I think recognizing the external factors that could have fed into why you're doing something are also important. Like what we talked about, looking at, oh shit, did I buy this car because I'm actually suffering emotional damage? That I mean, it's your choice. Yeah, you own the responsibility for making the decision to buy that car, but there were factors of your past that probably put you in a position, like led to that decision. And like ignoring those things, I think is it does us a disservice. So I like looking into those things. I feel like society's role in materialism is something that is worth looking at as well. It's not blaming society, but just addressing the fact that like we definitely do live in a society that seems to very highly value wealth and material objects and things like that, and it kind of it almost sets you up to fail, where it's like again, I'm not taking responsibility away from us, but we are kind of starting a few steps behind, just being in the society where it's basically like, okay, well, you need to be this successful to ride, you must be this tall to join. But
yeah, and I mean, we're bombarded by marketing material that tells us this.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, to be fair, like, the economy thrives on that.
Yes, yeah.
Because, like, well,
yeah, we talked about it before, where it's like, it is an important, like, you can't just, it is literally detrimental to just stop spending. Like, that is like like we're talking about, the economy like literally needs the exchange of money, like that. Like,
well, it's like spend when appropriate, where absolutely necessary.
Mm-hmm. And search within yourself to make sure you understand where appropriate is.
Yeah, there's that self-awareness again.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it is a big thing to me. I don't know if it's just a personal thing, or if like it's if you would agree. But yeah, the self-awareness thing does seem to be very very tied to this issue in my mind.
You have provoked much thought in this one, sir.
I would say that's a good thing.
I spent a lot of time hiding behind the microphone because I was thinking real hard.
I noticed that. Yeah,
I'm not doing it on purpose, but like my face gets behind it. But yeah, it's funny because like I tend to despise this society talk, but in this case, it's very valid. Because marketing is part of this society, and there's so many things that have been like made up recently that just didn't really exist before. Like, there's actually a perversion. Like, I was actually listening to it on the World War II doc on Netflix. There was a perversion of Bushido that was this, not exactly the code of the samurai. It was sort of a perversion of it that was made within recent years of the World War II conflict, that you are but a thing to die for the emperor. And that's where a lot of the indoctrination for the kamikaze attacks came from.
Interesting.
And not to say like everybody did something fucked up like in World War II, including the US at the time. So like, but it's just like that there's a lot of things that get changed around, like the idea of buying a diamond ring when you marry somebody, also a new thing. Or even wearing a white wedding dress was a sign of prosperity. White parties where everybody wears white was like a way for rich people to show off how much money they had. Because like, I can wear this and throw it away because it's white and it'll get dirty and our detergent fucking sucks. Thank you, synthetic detergents. But yeah, it's like that we really get bombarded with these ideas, like marketing ideas and things like that, and you can see like some of it is so blatant.
Yeah, well, it's blatant, but it's also so potent. It's so strong, and it's everywhere.
It's emotional and visceral. It's like this Mother's Day, show her you care. Spend too much fucking money on this bracelet, or you're not a man, or like whatever they say in the fucking ad.
Well, it is crazy though that it's, it is an entire industry built around manipulating people. Like it is, like it's really weird.
Here, I need to look it up. The guy's name, Edward Bernays.
Oh yeah,
father of modern marketing and also propaganda. And another thing, actually, because I keep talking about it, but that World War II doc actually opened my eyes to the fact that most of what I'm hearing about military effort in the Middle East, probably mostly bullshit. And like 60 years from now, someone else is going to take that and turn it into a documentary.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, there's also interesting thing. Actually, Leach just mentioned the idea that diamonds aren't particularly rare.
Yes.
That De Beers actually does hoard them. This is true.
Yeah.
De Beers actually did a thing like, okay, here's something that fucking drives me crazy. So I'm just going to show this for the sake of argument.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the company Gerber? No, not baby food. Gerber makes knives.
I did not know that. No.
So they have very expensive pocket knives.
Okay.
And I've owned
it's
two
a different
Gerbers.
company, right?
Yes, totally different company.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, not like two different divisions. Like we make baby food and
knives,
sharp
yeah.
objects, like in the same factory. No, it's two different companies altogether.
Okay.
Gerber knives are quite expensive.
Okay.
Benchmade knives are very expensive too. I've never used a Benchmade knife, but many of the people I know that have Benchmades really, really like them.
Okay.
But the thing about Gerbers is you feel bad about using them because they're so fucking expensive. I have a knife called it's made by a company called Buck.
Okay.
It's called an 870. So I think you've actually seen this knife on me before. But I mean, just like looking at this, like, how much do you think this knife was? A Gerber, I can tell you, a comparable Gerber would be $100, maybe 120.
Okay, I would
a
guess
Benchmade would be like 120, 150.
Okay. I would guess probably around maybe 70, 80.
It's a $20 knife.
Oh, nice. That's not bad.
This is the best fucking pocket knife I've ever owned in my life.
Nice.
It's made by a company called Buck, and it's a model 870. I highly recommend this if you need a knife to use for utility. It's not a weapon, it's a tool. I mean, it could be a weapon, but I use it as a tool. But this thing, like, there's this idea that the more you spend on something, the better it is. But I fucking love this knife. I haven't had to sharpen this bitch one fucking time, and it cuts very clean.
Now, there are definitely cases where that is true. But that is not a flat across the board thing.
Yeah, so I'm sure that, because I never used one, but based on the reviews of my friends, the Benchmade knives are very expensive, and I'm sure that they're probably higher quality than this one. But this knife I think is equal or better quality than a Gerber, and even a few other companies for less money. Like I accidentally, because I clip it to my pocket when I leave, I took one to the fucking airport. My girlfriend dropped me off, and I was like, ah, shit.
Yeah.
So like I get to the security checkpoint, I'm like, hey buddy, enjoy this knife.
Yeah, you're gonna have to take this.
But it's like, but I wasn't mad. It's like, fuck it, it was $20.
Yeah.
So like,
but if it was $120 knife, it would have been. Yeah.
And I like landed in Atlanta or someplace, and I just got on eBay and ordered another one. I was like, it'll be there when I get home.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel bad about it. So like, and I sort of use that like to make a point. This is one of my favorite knives I've ever owned, and I've owned a lot of pocket knives. And it didn't cost that much, and I think that the idea that there's some prestige attached to like how much things cost really pisses me off.
Yeah.
That bothers me because like stuff at Express is really expensive clothing, but it's low fucking quality.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not durable at all.
Yep.
I feel like I'm getting off subject here.
Well, no, I mean that is an important.
I'm talking about stuff though.
Yeah, that is an important part though, because I mean, like we're saying, there is, so there is the idea of like being frugal is good, which I would agree with. However, there is also the idea of buying high quality items that last. It's just, I mean, it's just the core idea is the psychology. I think that's really what we're getting towards, is knowing the intention behind owning or purchasing something. If don't buy things to show off. Basically, I mean that's kind of what it gets down to, right? Like,
yeah, buy it because look, I dated someone who I feel like every relationship I've had, there's been a little thing I've gotten to learn, and every conversation I've had, one of the things that she said to me was, "Do not buy that unless you absolutely love it." And she said she was not a very expressive person.
That's a girl that knows how to shop, though.
Yeah, oh yeah, she was very flat affect, but she emphasized the word love there.
Yeah,
it's like, unless you love it, and I was like, okay, I'm a little turned on, but also, yeah, like I get it.
Yeah,
that you really need to justify that. Like for instance, I've been thinking about buying a new like chair for a while, but this one that I'm in right now, it's to shit.
Can I suggest the Vertigear PL 4500? It's a very great. I know how you feel about racers.
Like these fucking people should sponsor us. Like for how many promotions we've done, Buck Pocket Knives needs to sponsor us. Vertigear needs to sponsor us. Didn't I think I plugged San Pellegrino at one point.
That
like we dude, we should seek out some brand partnerships. But yeah, it's like,
I wonder if we could get like a local company That'd be sweet.
I'm sure we could get somebody. Somebody would sponsor us. I'm sure. I'm sure we could figure it out. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we could probably talk a while about this, but I think that the cool thing is that whatever we have left over, like you said, like it can kind of bleed. I don't even remember what your fucking point was. What was the question you asked? What did you pose?
Well, we were mainly, it wasn't really a question as much as it was looking at like kind of society's role, not taking the blame away from people, but just like the environment we're in.
Yeah. Marketing.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah. But everywhere. And that's what I'm saying. Like the analogy that I was using is it's like, we don't get to just start at neutral and then decide if we're going to go towards materialistic or, you know, like we're kind of pushed in that direction, and we're already like having to dig our way out of a materialism hole to begin with because of the environment that we're in, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm in that fucking hole right now. Like, I am up to my motherfucking eyeballs in debt because of dumb shit. And I wish I could rewind and have a fucking down payment for a house so I could get some goddamn equity. But a $1.2 million house that I can't afford.
1.2? What? All right, this is a conversation for a completely other time. What are you
spend my whole paycheck
about?
on the house? Well, no, because like if I hadn't climbed myself into the amount of debt that I'm in from purchasing shit,
okay,
then I would actually be able to purchase a house and have some equity in some kind of thing, at least till the housing market crashes again.
I know what I was just saying, like, I know the housing market around here, and it's like, where's a $1.2 million house? And like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I was, you know, I'm gonna move to Austin, Texas. I don't know.
Oh, dude, I want to move to Austin. I really do, actually.
Please don't.
I want to move to either Austin or LA. That's the dream.
Oh my God, I want to stab myself right now. And I can with my $1.870 knife, only $20. God, sponsor us, please.
All right, dude, we should get God to sponsor us. This episode of the Metacast podcast is brought to you by God. All right. I feel like we're ready to wrap up and save a few topics for minimalism next week. So do you have a quote for this week?
Oh yes, I do.
Sweet. Okay, good. I was worried I was gonna put you on the spot and you're gonna be like, no.
And by coincidence, just so you know, Ty, we often talk about the title, but he did this title on his own, so this is not coordinated at all. So I have a quote from someone who I believe is one of the greatest artists of the 1980s. And the quote goes like this: "And I am a material girl living in a material world. And I am a material girl. You know that we are living in a material world."
I'm so happy you chose that as the quote. That just like
that was Madonna.
You just made my day.
That was Madonna, my loves.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Metacast podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed the conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to keep up to date with what we're doing, and comment below and let us know your experience with materialism. Has it been something you've had to deal with in the past, or not? If you're interested in further taking part in the conversation or even joining us as a guest on a future episode, please join our Discord. The link is in the description down below. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode live Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/TylerTV. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you all have a great week.